Discourse 6. Beloved students of the light, I thank you, and in my deepest gratitude, I give you all the strength and courage of my being to assist you to go forward in the mighty application of your presence and power of life, the mighty I am. Be assured there is not one thing of discord in the outer world that can longer prevent your success, or that can longer keep you from your great and fondest heart's desire. Let us be real happy and chummy today, for I know only too well what is in your hearts. Is there any heart in human form that does not want to be happy or that does not want to be successful? I am sure there is not. Therefore, gentlemen, instead of floating in the world of human creation, and instead of being like a ship in a storm at sea with no anchorage, which has been the condition mankind have been in, today you have dropped anchor into the greatest intelligence and power in the universe, your own mighty I Am presence. As you observe this chart and see your position in relation to your own God presence, how can anybody who is really sincere question any longer his or her ability to call forth the powers of the presence, or refuse to accept it as being there? It is there, I assure you, whether you ever saw it in this embodiment or not. Still, this presence has always been there in every embodiment in which you have ever lived. Until mankind knows that presence is above each one, there is no anchorage against the human powers for the release of the greater powers mankind needs for this successful achievement. You have come to know your presence is there, and your heart does know it. No matter how much your intellect battles against it, your heart knows it is there. Therefore, you are coming to act and understand from your heart instead of your head. Of course, you, in your intellect, have a focus of directing intelligence of the presence. But if the intellect tries to act from the information that it has gathered from without, again, you are lost. Don't you see, gentlemen, you cannot gather information from without, which is but human opinions, human concepts, and come to the formation of a correct solution of anything. It is only as you call forth this great intelligence from your God presence, your mighty I Am, that you come to know definitely, accurately, and correctly the solution to anything, because the human cannot know it. Let us, for a moment, consider your governmental conditions, your nation. If the officials in the government would make this application, it would connect them with their presence, which would cause them to be honest and sincere, because they could not use it very long until the desire to be honest and bless their fellow man would take place. There was a time not long ago when mankind could get away with deceit. They just don't do it anymore, because all mankind are becoming more sensitive. Even those who won't accept this idea still are all becoming more sensitive to the vibratory action about them, and they sense and feel conditions of 1,000 times greater than they did 40 years ago. Therefore, what is in the feeling world of individuals radiates out, and those who contact that feeling world feel exactly what is there, and that is coming into action more and more all the time. So it will not be long until mankind will not be able to deceive each other. That is the important thing in the lives of mankind. As soon as they find they cannot do that, then the desire will vanish from mankind. You cannot, from the human standpoint, succeed in that way. Men who have great accumulation of wealth and industry are trembling in every fiber of their beings today. They know and feel only too well the vast change which is coming. The simplicity of the requirements of mankind is coming in. It will do away with the ponderous machinery and all that kind of thing, which has cost so much money today. If all graft, which is selfishness, were out of the feeling of mankind, the cost of things would not be 1/2, leaving a good profit to those who are at the heads of industries. You take it in the clothing industry, in the fabrics of every kind, in your machinery, and all that kind of thing, which is still the need of the outer world thus far. The profit or money from those things is 2, 3, or 500%. Since we are in your lovely Colorado, the mining industry, the industry that should be the greatest industry in America and the world, especially today, has almost been wrecked because of the condition that has existed. In those previous ages, when we used that as an infinite supply for the care and the expense of the government, it would care for everything that the government required and still leave abundance for those who were governing. These conditions must again be put into the use of mankind, but in the meantime, there must be some means of bringing this about, not in a long, drawn-out period. Ere many years, you will be surprised how the political condition that exists today, the old political idea, will have almost vanished. It has to do it. This cosmic light will compel it to do it. And mankind will begin to feel the divine love, divine order, and divine justice, and call it forth for each other from the highest to the most humble activities. I want you to realize that you, as a focus of this great light which beats your heart, can do more than your fondest imagination could possibly conceive today through your indefinite decrees sent forth in the mental and feeling world of mankind. Now then, understand, gentlemen, I do not wonder that mankind does not want to come together if there is inharmony. Therefore, I say to your blessed leader of the Minutemen, the important thing in your group activities of Minutemen is to so call the powers of the presence forth with such power that absolute harmony reigns in your midst. Then, as you issue these mighty decrees in a body, the volume of it, as it goes forth, is just like the power that breaks down a great dam, holding back a great body of water. At first, you do not see any perceptible result, but as your wedge goes into that, and it begins to widen, as this momentum gains, it presses forth, and a great achievement is attained. It has to be so. The messengers have proven that in this work, beyond a question for any human being who cares to see it. The messengers have proven that in this work, beyond a question for any human being that cares to see it. Therefore, it is not that you do not have some example before you, which is proof of the law. Since you have, and it is unquestionable, then for all mankind who have the courage to begin their application and build it up, their own momentum in their call to the presence sweeps everything of limitation and discord from their pathway. It will do it, and there is not anything to prevent it as soon as you maintain harmony in your feelings. That is what has caused your qualification in the past to bring you into limitation and distress of every kind. You, as the masculine element in the creation of mankind, by your very nature are positive. Therefore, in this embodiment, having a masculine body, you are in a position to call forth that positive force which repels every human quality that would disturb or limit you. Unless you do that, you will find yourself subject to the conditions wherever you move, and you will find yourselves unable to cope with them as you have in the past. Many times in the quiet of your hearts, you have called out to God to know what in the world was the matter that you did not have the achievement that you knew was due from your efforts. Now today, there is not one of you, there is not one of the Minutemen in America that cannot start right in this day, deliberately, mechanically, accurately and begin to apply and pour forth the power of his presence into whatever his desire might be in the business activity or achievement, and bring it forth quickly into success that will satisfy anyone. Now remember, I am speaking of your outer industrial activity today because I want you to feel you cannot all just let go of the requirements of the needs of mankind today, because there must be those who will call forth this perfection into every phase of industry or the things of the world. Mankind have not yet come to the point where they can do away with many of those things. There might be many of the students who could, but not the rest of mankind. And remember, you are only just a fragment of the vast population of mankind, but enough to hold that mighty, eternal focus of the light until this great radiance spreads and draws thousands and thousands of mankind into this understanding. Do not be concerned about people who do not accept this light, not for a second. You cannot force anyone to accept anything they do not want, but you just have to give them time to consider. This is the thing you need to understand. Perhaps you have observed in your experience the moment you give a human freedom, all rebellion and opposition as a rule go down. But if he feels you are trying to force him to do something, then you have a battle right away. So as the opportunity affords to present this truth, if you will follow the messenger's prompting from the beginning in the classwork, and of course it is quite definite, individually, if you find someone who begins to argue, say, very well, we are not going to argue this subject. If you care to listen to the understanding I have, very well. And you will forestall people attempting to argue the truth of this great law with you. The moment you feel an argument starting, you might just as well stop, because nobody will accept a thing the moment a feeling of that kind arises within them. So do not waste your time, but cause everyone to feel absolutely free, even in the discussion of this, and they will accept it 1,000 times quicker. You know, mankind, when they become very enthusiastic, might produce a temporary result, but it won't be permanent. So as you leave mankind wholly free, then it is quite up to them to accept or reject it. Let them feel the absolute independence. You know how the messenger has been from the beginning. He has been absolutely independent of other people's opinions, whether they accept it or not. His part was to present the truth and leave it to mankind to reject or accept. And this is why this has grown to such proportions without any outer means. Gentlemen, this applies to your business just the same. The old outer method, which built to tremendous proportions, will vanish from the earth. But look what it did. You might not have observed this, but we have. It draws hundreds and thousands of people to accept the suggestion of advertising. And when they find it is not always the correct thing, then they are disappointed and rebellion goes forth. That is why high-pressure salesmanship has almost vanished, because mankind will not stand for it. To be influenced to buy something or accept something they afterwards find they do not want is not a permanent achievement of any kind. That is why, in every phase of life, as mankind are left free to formulate their own decision, they will come into a natural, permanently sustained power and bring complete success in whatever the attention is directed to. Suppose you decide upon some definite activity. Instead of talking to your friends about it, your acquaintances, suppose you turn to your great presence of life and say, "Mighty I am presence, this activity is that which I should like to do. You make me feel clearly and definitely if this is the thing that is the divine plan for me to do." Then, if you feel the enthusiasm and the impelling force to go ahead, simply say, "Now, mighty I am presence, take command of this mind and body. Produce your perfection and hold your dominion. This is your business." Now, you project your mighty light rays, your mighty currents of energy into this business. You reach your loving arms out and draw the customers and associates into this business that will hold divine order and divine justice. There is not a person on the face of this earth who would take that up and follow it accurately with the right motive within them to have divine justice to all concerned that could not build in 1 year a successful business that would satisfy them beyond their fondest imagination. All that has ever been acting is this light and energy from your own God presence. You have not known that. Yet it is the only thing that ever could act in your world. But you are crossing wires. So many times in your feelings you intercept and interrupt that great current of energy that floods forth, which would give you that which your heart desires. But it cannot do it as long as you are crossing wires all the time by the change in your feeling and attention. If you wanted to form a definite power and hold it, could you allow your attention to move in a half circle all the time and expect any definite results? You cannot do it. It means you would spread that force upon an area in which your attention wavered instead of on this thing you desired. We know positively and definitely if you want to achieve a thing, you must hold your attention fixed upon the goal. Do not worry about the means brought about to make that success, but keep your attention fixed upon the goal. Know this great power and intelligence, the mighty I Am, is the only intelligence and power acting. Then, whatever conditions are required in the outer world to bring the success and draw the correct people into that association for the success and achievement will be done by the wisdom of the present, and all mistakes will cease from mankind's life and experience. This is an accurate law, gentlemen, and it cannot fail. It never did, because you are dealing with the most powerful law in the universe, your own life. There is nothing in the world that has any authority in your world but the power of your own life. I say to you, and I have proven this hundreds of times, it does not make any difference what chaos is going on around you. If you will stand as one, as though you stood alone in the universe with your presence, and call its intelligent power forth to act in your world will be happy and successful. Even those that have been in chaos about you will respect you and wonder, what in creation has that individual got that holds him so poised and balanced? That is where all achievement is, in the balance of the feeling, knowing the source to which to call. You cannot call once to that presence, that it does not release immediately that great quantity of light and energy. Don't you see that, gentlemen? There is no other power to act, and as you give it conscious attention, don't you see then that you have connected with the greatest power and intelligence to flood forth just automatically? Largely, the mass is voluntary action because the individual who does not understand the presence is having less than 10% of that presence and power that would flow through his body and feeling world to produce that which is required. But you, who have the understanding of the great presence and know how to call it forth, you can call forth 20, 40, or 50 times that presence and power within 1 year. There is not one of you that could not call forth 50 times the energy, the intelligence, and the power of action that you have had thus far. Gentlemen, I contend that it does not matter one particle whether there are 30 or 70 years in appearance upon your physical body. It has not a thing to do with it. This power and presence of life is the energy, is the youth, is the strength that is in your body, not the human concept that says you are 70 years old and are out of business. I say to you young men starting in now, don't accept that thing, that human suggestion of the accumulation of the ages, that when you reach beyond 40 years, you begin to get old. Don't accept that thing. It is outrageous. Blessed mankind have accepted that, and then the minute you pass the 40s, Minutemen, you begin to feel old. It is nonsense. That energy is just the same, an energy that it was at your fondest youth to sustain you in that. And there is nothing else required in the universe but that. Your intelligence through your experience necessarily becomes greater and greater each week, each month. And as you turn your attention to that great presence, you will call forth that greater and greater intelligence that becomes invincible. Then you will find yourself straightening up and feeling those great currents of energy flow through that body. And there will not be any lack of energy, any lack of vitality. The pitiful thing in mankind today is that which the doctors have conceived. The sinister thing that mankind can use the glands of animals to revive their vitality and youth is the most diabolical thing in the life of mankind today. Mankind, in the human understanding, has quite enough of the animal already. But, dear people, it is the governing of those desires that mankind needs, not the intensifying of them. Gentlemen, I say to you very frankly, many of the doctors and your associates have caused you to believe that you could utilize your sex desires without any limit and retain success. You cannot do it. I say to you frankly, having watched mankind for centuries, you cannot do it. Just as surely as you waste that energy for pleasure gratification, one day you will find yourself depleted, without strength and energy, and your success that once was yours will vanish from your experience. These are great laws, gentlemen, and do not let the accumulated desire govern you any longer. I say to our youth, what a magnificent opportunity! It is quite right for anyone who wishes to bring forth another form, procreation of their kind, to use the sex for that. But it never was intended for pleasure gratification, because that is the waste of that great life. Now notice what the effect is. Where your attention is, there you are, and there is the majority of your life energy flowing. Now notice this, gentlemen. Here is the dividing line, right here at your solar plexus. Right above your hips is the dividing line, so to speak, between the divine and the human. If your attention is upon sex desire, you drive all that energy down, away from your heart and brain. And how can you have the intelligence to keep you from making mistakes if you do that? This is practical, the most practical thing in the world. I cannot tell you what you shall do in the governing of those desires, but I can and do tell you the law which we know to be true and have for centuries. Observe the youth today who are 18, 19, 20, sometimes 22 years old, filled with the limitless energy and vitality, and then let them be drawn into the sex excess and see how quickly that beauty of form, that limitless vitality and energy have vanished. That is because that which is being wasted through that desire is life, it is vitality, it is energy. Gentlemen, I want you to know this is a great practical law. Everything in the outer world of mankind has encouraged them today to do these things, but it is the ignorance of the greatest kind. And if mankind want to do that, then they will just have to reap the results. I love to have the opportunity to put before mankind the truth of life. Then they must choose how they use it. I assure you, and you see it before you throughout mankind, I could cite to you and call by name 100 men, for I have their record, that attained great power of achievement. When they had gained everything in the outer world their hearts desired, power, wealth, and authority, then, when they seemed not to have any further victories to win, they turned to the last thing by which the sinister force seizes upon mankind, the gratification of the sex desire. Within 5 years, every one of those men became failures, because their excess was very great. That is why, gentlemen, idle minds today are the most dangerous thing before mankind, because that is where the sinister force drives the attention. As the messenger says, whether in the dance halls or the colleges, the universities or elsewhere, that sinister thing through the jazz music has driven in the most diabolical suggestions and movement, and all to the young people, trying to quickly drag them into the sex desire, which the sinister force knows is the failure of all mankind. Therefore, gentlemen, I offer, with all the love of my heart and kindness, this information which is accurate. You may not realize it, but we have actual records, just the same as you have your bookkeepers today in your business. Just so do we have the accurate records of mankind. So we know absolutely, unquestionably, that which we say to you. There is no intent nor desire upon our part to say to mankind what they shall do. We present the truth of life. Then everyone, because of their free will, must choose whether they care to accept it and be blessed by it or not. I want you to understand that in this work, as the messengers have always said to you, they state the law absolutely accurately. Then you must decide whether you care to use it or not. You see by that, not 1 ounce of energy is ever used to influence you in any way. That is the greatest blessing of the work of the messengers that has ever come to mankind on the face of the earth or ever will, because everything else in the world today tries to hold its claws upon mankind. I say this kindly because it is true. You take the other activities and beliefs of today. All are not like this. Some are. In fact, there are 2 extremes. Those people who are absolute fanatics and those who have become the most beautiful creatures by their understanding. Those who have become so viciously opposed to this work for no reason in the world, but they fear this work is going to take their people from the churches. Good heavens, gentlemen, if their churches had what this has, it could not take people away. The messengers have never sought one of their people, but if the light within the heart of those individuals draws them away from that into their freedom, are the messengers to be blamed, or are we? It is the law of life acting, and if they could only see that, as the great divine director told them, if they don't stop every force of viciousness, it will empty every church in the land. That is no fault of the messengers, but the feeling of the individuals in those institutions. It is the same way with industries or universities and colleges. Whatever sufficient vicious discord reigns, it removes everything from its midst. I want you to understand it is those feelings within a body of people that repel and make it a failure. You take any business today and let sufficient discord drive in, and it will fail in a few months. I don't care how many $1 million are back of it, because harmony is the law of life, and where it is maintained, there is nothing in the world that can prevent success in the midst of that harmony. Again, the messengers, because they know the law of life and live it, have held harmony in their heart center and have been able to expand this light to its present great number without a single outer assistance or advertising of the outer world. That shows you the power of the presence, and it is so in your business activity. If you choose to focus your attention upon a definite activity in the business world, look neither right nor left, but keep calling the powers of your presence into action and keep yourselves harmonized. Then the power of light and intelligence will carry you into successful achievement. But as long as you look to discordant feelings and gossip in the outer world, your feelings will be stirred up and you will never have achievement in anything. That is the condition of mankind today as they go forward. Look in the crash of a few years ago. Thousands of men having achieved great fortunes lost them overnight. Then what happened? They had the same intelligence. They had the same life flowing through them. Everything exactly the same as it was before the crash. Then what happened? They accepted the human sense of failure, loss. Had they reversed that feeling and said to God, even if they did not know the I am, said, Almighty God, I achieved this once. I refuse acceptance of this appearance. I shall go forward and attain again. the way would have opened and they would have attained more quickly than in the beginning because they had the momentum gained. That is where mankind stands today. The moment you admit failure in your feelings, that quality is compelled to act there, and it will rush out and repel everything from it. No matter how much apparent loss has been in your life, don't ever let your feelings once again admit it. Say, that apparently is gone, but the same intelligence, power, and ability is right here that was before. And that is true. Mankind, through mass suggestion, have believed they have not the same vitality and energy because of the gathering years. They crumple up and say, well, I think it is no longer any use. What a mistake. What a great mistake. Of course, mankind have not known that they were connected with the greatest power in the universe. But now you today who do know can reverse all of these conditions. Gentlemen, I say, if you are 70 years old, if you would straighten your spine, turn to your presence, and call forth that mighty energy and vitality into your body, you could restore the youth and action you had at 30. And I mean it. Therefore, gentlemen, I want you to know that from our octave of life, every one of you who will be honest, sincere, earnest, and determined to the power of light of your own heart, we will give you every assistance that is possible for your victory from today. But you cannot afford to yield to the suggestions of the outer world in a single thing. If you do, you invite everything that is accumulated in human limitations to again enter your world. I shall call most earnestly for the strength and courage and power to act within your feeling world that does release the power, intelligence, and energy from your own presence, which will sustain you until you are conscious yourself of the victory that you can have. But remember, gentlemen, don't waste your energy and expect success. It cannot be done. You are not being deprived of anything, but everything life holds is being added. 5 minutes attention to the present, feeling those mighty currents of energy charging in and giving you an enthusiasm and buoyancy of youth is greater than a whole lifetime of sex gratification. Therefore, today, remember, gentlemen, you are moving in the outer world of a seething vortex of that suggestion everywhere you move. And unless you are strong enough to stand firmly and repel it, you will accept it in your feelings when you do not know it. And the first thing you know, that desire is beginning to act within. As it gains momentum, the impelling force compels you to gratify it. Then your energy is gone for an achievement that possibly stood just before you. Now to show you how in hundreds of cases, because we have watched it to see the results upon mankind. We have seen men come together for this specific achievement, and they were all harmonious and agreeable. When they thought they had their papers signed and everything in perfect agreement for the forward movement of that, then, as soon as the attention relaxed on that, it turned upon some immoral discussion and the destructive powers rushed in. Before 5 days were over their heads, chaos reigned in their midst, and there was no agreement. That is what is happening to mankind constantly, and blessed mankind have not understood and were at the mercy of those destructive forces. Mark you, much is the generation and creation of mankind throughout the centuries, and all mankind to some degree are responsible for it, to the degree they have been inharmonious. These are laws, dear hearts. They will set you free if you will only study and apply them. They cannot act for you without your application, but they will produce powerful results if you will apply it and give all confidence and, in the power of your presence, clear your world and set you free in the victory of your success. I thank you, gentlemen, for this opportunity to talk to your hearts, and I call forth the powers of your mighty I Am presence through the higher mental body of each one of you, to take command of those minds and bodies, to conserve that energy, give you the power and strength and courage to stand in the power of light until you can call it forth and see its marvelous effect in your world. Great presence of each one, through the higher mental body, take command of each one. Silence the human qualities and release thy limitless energy and restore vitality, strength, and youth in the body and directing intelligence. Hold their attention upon the constructed things and send them forth like a rocket into success, which is divine order and divine justice for every one of mankind. I thank you.